And welcome to the Wake Up, an hour of sovereign power from the spiritual center of the earth, with your host, Ben Hawks. Are you ready to wake up? Are you ready? Then let's begin.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, grand risings. My name is Ben. You're with me on The Wake Up, the podcast for dissenters, mavericks, heretics, and I'm very happy to have one here with me today. I've got Dr. Nick Thompson, who is a veterinary, I was about to say veterinary surgeon. That doesn't feel right because it's not, yeah, is that cool? Can I say that?
Yeah, no, it's very cool. I love surgery. I was trained in veterinary. My degree is Bachelor of Veterinary Medicine and Surgery. Got it from Edinburgh in '92, and yeah, I love surgery. It's a bit like Lego, except you only need to get it approximately right. You know, the closer everything is, and the better you can get bones and what have you. But then it fixes itself. So actually, surgery is a wonderful thing.
So you don't actually have to get it right. That's why you like it so much.
You are the ultimate guide, if you like. And then the body.
No one knows how to do it apart from you, Nick. Everyone has confidence in you. I've got a very good friend up in Manchester who's an orthopedic surgeon for knees and for shoulders. And he talks about it with such glee. And I sat with him and said, mate, you're a bit of a psychopath, aren't you? He said, yes, that's exactly how they need us, trust me.
Wow.
But yeah, it's all good fun. I mean, I suppose it's funner when it's dogs because they're cute anyway and you get to make them run again, don't you?
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful thing. Seriously, one of the podcasts that I follow very, very closely is a guy called Doc Malik, and I'm sure your guys would
talks a great deal of sense.
He talks. He's on our page basically, and he's a foot and ankle surgeon, and I'm sure he would be the first. He's 25 years in the game, NHS, and then in private practice. A foot and ankle surgeon. He's done about 160 odd episodes, and he's spoken to Andrew Wakefield, Sarah Myhill, Nick Hudson, and all the greats. He is awake in his thinking, and he's honest. He's a man of integrity, and he's great to listen to. Wears his heart on his sleeve. And in fact, I'm going on his show. We're going to record at the end of June.
Fantastic.
So that's one to look out for. I've done one recently with another heroine of mine called Zoe Harkham. You come across Zoe Harkham?
No.
She's very on page with you and I and your wonderful band. Tribe of followers, and we had a fantastic chat. So yeah, if anybody's interested, well, they're about to have it.
I'll get the
something now. But Zoe Hart,
I'll get the link off podcast. You definitely.
Yeah,
and I do love the way you are advertising other people's podcasts on my podcast. It's so good. I don't have an ego. No, it's all good, brother. Now the reason you're here,
we're all a tribe. The thing is, we're all a tribe, and I don't care who I talk to, as long as we're talking integrity, reason. Yes. Where are we right? Because we don't get it right all the time. Where do we get it wrong?
Yeah.
Ben, it's not about you, and it's not about me. It's about 100%. The truth, because there's a tsunami of evil out there, and we need to come together to Ivor Cummins. He's another really wonderful. He's
Ivor. Very good. He's possessed of a wonderful Irish accent as well.
He's brilliant.
Can I just say that when you said that thing about coming together, I genuinely got goosebumps. Because people don't. One of the things I love doing is just saying shit like that with a very straight face. The kind of thing that you'd only normally find in Disney movies. About genuine goodness, having genuine goodness and evil in this world, saying things like that out loud, because we don't do that enough. And that's really what people want to hear. But I would take I would say to you, after saying there's a tsunami of evil, yes, there is, but there's also a tsunami of good.
Oh, there
and
totally
it's going to
is.
start with harsh truth.
Yeah.
A lot of it, which I think we're kind of here to talk about, because we met, God, must have been 8 years ago, when I bought my our puppy Noodle, and you said she's going to be a tyke, and you were absolutely right.
We could see it back then.
Yes, certainly could. And the reason we came to see you is my wife is a big raw feeding advocate for dogs.
Wonderful.
And we also wanted to talk to you about kind of proper vaccination for her as well. And it struck me as fascinating that a lot of the arguments we're having in allopathic medicine writ large, or not writ large quite yet, it will be soon. My money's on September, October. You guys have been having veterinary surgery or veterinary medicine for quite some time. And you seem something of the heretic in that space.
Well, it's all relative. Analysis? It's all relative. I mean, what's heretic? I'm a strong advocate for rational thought.
Wow.
Look at what's in front of you, analyze it, study it, research it, and reflect using common sense. I think. That
sounds deeply unfashionable. Is that unfashionable in veterinary medicine?
In veterinary medicine, well, I think that the last 4 years have shown us that it's quite deeply unfashionable across the globe. In certain sectors of society, it's deeply unfashionable. But, and what I was going to say is that we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for Bill and Melinda and Fauci and all our friends who drove us to such extraordinary, painful, irrational extremes.
Indeed.
And for that, I'm grateful for them, because to have conversations like this is really wonderful. The people who are turning up in my life now, I would never have met. And there's a lot of people with whom I can't speak freely, and I'm tending to kind of drift away from those people.
Yes.
And those people with whom I can have an honest conversation, I'm finding getting closer and closer to. And so I think that's something to be grateful for, that we're actually finding each other, that we won't agree on everything, but on this really, really important life and death, potentially, we totally agree, and we would be there for each other. So that this global village is coming, it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to discover truth, to look after each other, and we're all coming together within that collective, and that's great. I love it.
It is beautiful to see,
isn't it?
And it's interesting. My mentor, who is a very aware and spiritual human vessel with energy attached, is convinced that COVID was sent to us to wake people up, that it was a light code sent from wherever, and I've got plenty of ideas about that.
Yeah.
Dropped into the minds of our governments, government control mind. It's all in the words. In order to provide that resistance that would shake us from this slumber we've been in for the last 200,000 years, really, depending on where you want to start with it. But I completely agree. It's a blessing and a curse, but mostly a blessing, and it will definitely show us what we are capable of as human beings, and how much we can build in the future. But we've got to build the future. So in doing that, let's go back a bit. When did you start to think not all is well in the Kingdom of Denmark?
Shakespeare, nice. Hamlet, no less.
I'm trying to convince you that I'm a clever man.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if you weren't, my friend.
God bless you.
So when did I suss that it wasn't right? I think fairly early. when did they close down the pubs?
Good question. It was March. I think March 20th. I have to check my diary, but it was 21st or 23rd that they did the lockdown.
Okay.
And maybe a week or two before when they closed the pubs.
Okay, 23rd. So 2 weeks from that. So maybe the 10th of March?
Something like that, yeah. So Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was an odd day.
Okay, yeah, maybe. Okay, well, there you go. We went to the pub on the last night to celebrate, and I just said, this is just such a load of nonsense. So that's probably where it started. I didn't start saying anything. My first post is about May because I was just watching to see what was happening, and there was an avalanche of information, disinformation, stay at home, flatten the curve, all this kind of stuff. Can you remember actually? Because Boris, when he first started with the whole COVID thing, he said, "Oh, we're going to go for herd immunity." And then within about 5 days, they completely changed it. So I think that was the policy initially. But then I think whoever, had a word and said, no, you've got to lock down.
You're not scared enough.
For whatever reason, we've got to follow the Chinese model, which is to lock down with absolutely no evidence, and then the mask came out, zero evidence. And the social distancing based on a 14-year-old's high school paper, dissertation. This is the level of evidence that was coming out. And then when did Kennedy write The Real Anthony Fauci? That was maybe Christmas 2020, maybe a bit later. I read that, and that just kind of clarified everything for me. My first subversive post was about May on Instagram, was about May 2020.
What kind of pushback did you get from that?
Zilch.
Really?
Yeah, zilch. However, I was gaining about 100 followers every few days at that stage, and then after that point, I started to lose as many as I gained for every post that I put up. But I don't care, because the truth is the truth. And if people don't want to follow me for what I perceive to be an honest observation, then great. There's an evolution at play here, that the people who want to hear another point of view, they're going to stick with me, and those who just want to, jump over the cliff with the rest of the lemmings, they're going to disappear. And it's like, bye, doors over there. I'm really happy. I'm really happy for them to go, frankly. It
is a chap I got on here called David Edelman, who's he calls himself the people's lawyer for good reason. He stands up for people when they need it.
Yeah.
And he had a theory that people are kind of self-selected to take the jab because they couldn't stand to live in this world anymore. Because it is changing on an energetic level. There's a lot of people that I see with the Agent Smith effect, that you'll be speaking to them and you might say something like, Putin's not a bad guy.
Ooh. Oh, I've got live record here. Yeah. Still uploading. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Right. Can you hear me, see me?
Yeah, I can. Absolutely.
Cool. I have no
It's
idea.
difficult. It's difficult recording during the day because, like that, it's too bright, and then with the blinds, I've got a blind in front of me here. When it's down, all you can see is reflection in my glasses, which is probably very distracting for everybody.
Well, there's a lot of shining on the head here as well, to be fair. You ought to be forgiven. But what I was saying just before the Chinese intervened and stopped me from speaking was that one of the things I constantly say, probably to my cost, is that we're going to have to exercise our heart muscles and we're going to have to forgive a great deal. And that means forgiving the kind of people who annoy the shit out of us and have been annoying the shit out of us because they've not been paying attention to logic and reason.
Yeah, I'm prepared to do that, and I am not going to say I told you so.
No.
Yeah, because I wish I was wrong. I wish they were right. I wish that the vaccine was safe and effective, and it has saved the world from massive calamity. And I wish that small fraction of humanity who took us into it were actually there for our good. I wish that was the case, but I am convinced that they're not. They're looking for power and control, even beyond the money.
I agree, because they've got the money.
They've got the money. And,
why would they need more? Bill Gates has made an obscene amount of money between 2019 and now.
Yeah, and I think it's only the start. I was listening to somebody recently, and they said, "Who? Hang on, who was that? That was on Joe Rogan. It was Brett Weinstein on Joe Rogan, and he was saying, well, his theory is that the mRNA platform is so terrible, and for the last 20 years they haven't been able to make it work because it's dangerous and ineffective and all the rest of it, and they couldn't because it's so dangerous, wouldn't pass testing and what have you. And so COVID came along very conveniently, which is another coincidence, so-called coincidence, and that COVID has softened up those who can be softened, such that they can start rolling out mRNA vaccines for everything: measles, mumps, rubella, cholera, polio, and animal vaccines as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because what they will say is that, well, mRNA vaccines saved us from COVID. It's proven to be safe and effective. Therefore, we're going to roll it out into every platform, every disease that we can possibly think of, because it's a really cheap way of making disease.
We're being softened up for cancer right now.
Aren't they? I think don't they have one?
They do.
On the way out for cancer, for a certain type of cancer. Yeah.
They do indeed. So you'll start to see young people in cancer. Yeah, we're seeing young people dying of cancer right now, but we'll start to see it in the mainstream media more and more. The Kate Middleton piece, Prince Charles, Sarah Ferguson. We're being prepped to see cancer within many members of a family, as opposed to 1 in 6, 1 in 8, as being a normal thing, to soften us up for the mRNA vaccine platform for cancer. Yeah, but here's the thing. I was watching a video t'other day, and it was London General Assembly, and it was a Labour councillor talking about her ward, and her ward had a big dirty line in the middle of it, one in ULEZ, one without ULEZ. And she said with a straight face, I have to deal with constituents. Some have clean air because they're within ULEZ and some don't. She said it with a straight face, and you could just hear this ripple of laughter around this room in London, because she was saying this ridiculous thing that was so on narrative, it was unbelievable, woke as hell. Now, I genuinely think if they come out later in the year and say, don't worry, we've got this, we know there's a lot of cancer, but do you remember what we did with COVID? We're going to roll the same thing up for cancer. Now, genuinely, Do you think that people are going to get a roll up their sleeves, or do you think there's going to be a different reaction this time?
I think it's going to be different reaction. I think that, previously it was what I don't even know what the numbers are for those who rejected it. At some point, I heard
20% is in my mind.
Is it 20%? Right, 20% people say no way, Jose. I think it's going to be double that at least.
Yes,
because either they were vaccine injured or they knew somebody who was vaccine injured, and therefore I think the resistance is going to be much greater. It's ironic, isn't it? Because there's a lot of work. You think about Ryan Cole and all these other and Peter McCullough and all these guys. They're saying that cancer is on the increase. Ryan Cole especially, and there's that doctor in Canada who's just looked at cancer among doctors. It's normally at level X, which is fairly low because they're quite a healthy bunch and what have you. And even within doctors, it's increased significantly.
Yeah, it's a Six Sigma event. It's once in a lifetime. I think it's once in 6 lifetimes. I read some of the insurance data that's coming out shows within young people that within 2023. More young people died as a result of more young people died because it's just death data than Vietnam, and that took 8 to 10 years to drag.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, the chance of people in the West getting cancer is 1 in 2 over an entire lifetime. It's as high as that, yeah. Okay. But under about 40, cancer is much more rare.
Yeah,
and so the increase in cancers in that age group, that's really significant. Because it's like, where did that come from? Oh, look, it only started in the early part of 2020.
Indeed.
Yeah, and so, and you look at Ed Dowd, who's the ex BlackRock, the actuarial guy. Nick Hudson is another actuarial analyst, but Ed Dowd, based in Hawaii, he's coming out and saying, "Listen, we just looked at the insurance data, the incidence of disease and off sick days amongst blue collar workers. These are the
it's white collar workers."
White collar, yeah. It's basically it's kind of the professional classes because they all take out this certain type of life insurance, whatever it is, and so they've got this data, and it's absolute because people pay in order to get this insurance, and so they look at how many claims they got before 21 and how many claims they got after 21, and it's something. It's a 14 delta. It's if there was a 3 times change, that's once in a 100-year event, and this is, they say, it's something like 14 times. The change in the figures is something like up to 14 times, and he's saying there it is.
Yeah,
there's the data. Ed Dowd is the guy. He's really good to watch. The other guy who's very he is a very deep thinking philosophical guy is Nick Hudson.
I had him on the show a couple of months ago.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow. Respect.
I hexed him though because I do that occasionally. I'll email kind of quote unquote famous people and just act like it's a big show, and they'll say yes on impulse. But I did meet him in 2021 outside of the Apex in town in Bath because he was speaking at the Together conference thing. I think it was.
Yeah,
I met Brett Weinstein as well. He was a really nice guy.
Where in Bath at Tess Laurie's gathering.
Yeah, exactly that.
That's really good. I'm doing a gig for her. She's got an organisation based in Bath.
Yes,
which is where you are. And so I went down to the offices with a friend a couple of months ago, and we started talking about veterinary medicine and people kind of can get things through their animals much better. So I said, I'll do a talk for you if you like. They're having a detox fair up in Malmesbury.
Okay.
In, I think, June, mid-June, something like that. So I'm going to do a talk for them there, which I'm really excited about.
I think the wife might be interested in going to
Yeah, you'd have to get the details, but what's test lorries? There are so many new organisations.
The Council for Health Defence, something like that? No, that's JFK Jr. as well.
That's Kennedy, yeah.
The World Council for Health, I think it is.
World Council for Health, yeah. If you have a look on their website, that you'll see details of the event that they're having in, I think it's June 15th or so, a detox fair. So come along. And,
I will.
Because they're trying to raise money for their work.
3-year-old girls, we'll definitely both come along. But most people do, luckily. So coming back to animals, one of the things that fascinates me about wider attitudes, and I'll use my wife as an avatar for this, that she was into raw feeding and a natural approach to vaccinations for the dog years before she would consider such things for the human, which is fascinating.
My point. Yes, I rest my case, Your Honour.
Yeah.
People can get it for their dogs, even as they trip down to McDonald's or roll up their sleeves for a mRNA vaccine. Yeah.
What is that? How do we describe that on a psychological level?
I don't know. I think that's a great question, Ben, that I have never been asked before, because people will generally do to their children what they do to themselves. Yeah, if they go to McDonald's themselves, they'll inflict it on their kids. However, there are quite a few people who will not eat so well, for example, just use nutrition as a microcosm, who will feed raw food and will, and do it pretty well for their dog and go, do we really need those pesticides? Do we really need to neuter them? Do we need to go along with these interventions? Whereas for themselves, they're not quite so healthy. And the psychology there, I do not know. I've never thought about it, but I think it is a thing. I don't know why. Maybe it's sometimes people look after their cars better than they look after themselves. Mr. Jones washes his car every week, and yet is super unhealthy and uncleanly himself. Not cleanly, and he's probably tidy as anything if he's cleaning his car every week. But he's not leading his best, healthiest life, perhaps. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a muddle of psychology here. And
it is, but it's also a blessing. It is a real blessing, certainly for me, because there is that. I always find this with anyone close to me. There's no point going full bore with the usual, magazine of wake-up bullets that I'd usually use. You just alienate people. And the wonderful thing about the animal health piece and the natural piece around animal health is that, unbeknownst to me, my wonderful, beautiful, smart wife has been red pilling herself. And we had a conversation the other day about vaccines, and she said, I'm not so sure about it for our daughter. I was like, wow, this is brilliant. If I loved you before, I love you now. And it strikes me that you have a lot of power at your fingertips. A lot of power.
Power thrust upon me and other dissenting veterinarians.
Are there many?
Perhaps. How many?
How many hands?
I know 4
out of how
5 out of there are 18,000 vets in the UK, something like that. I haven't looked at the figures recently. It's about that, 20,000.
Holy fuck.
I know. I'm sure there's more, but so that I actually know, and I do know quite a lot of people because I've been around a long time, but I know of 4 or 5 who are actively on this page.
Now, I asked you for an interview 6 weeks ago, and you gave me one slot, which is this one. So you're obviously doing okay. Now, are people not speaking out because they're scared because they won't pay their mortgage? Is there peer pressure? What's going on there?
I think it's groupthink.
Right.
I think people are scared to speak out. I feel it's my duty.
Yeah, 100%.
And I just do it. I'm of an age where I don't give a shit anymore.
Very good.
You know, you've got to say what you've got to say. I would, you know, I don't want to jeopardize my safety, or even more the safety of my family. But you know, I think I'm a very, very, very small fish in a very large bowl. Just talking about vaccines, though, just as you were talking about vaccines, there's a couple of references to look at. There's a book called Turtles All the Way Down, which was written by anonymous, actually, because they didn't want to put their name to it because they knew that they would be vilified. They'd be Wakefielded if they put their name to it. And that's, if anybody's interested in childhood vaccination, then that is categorically the book to read. Absolutely amazing. You can get it on Audible, so you can do it while you're cutting the lawn, whatever. And the other one is, I can't remember the guy's name, but again, it's a very, very good audio book, and it's called The Butterfly and the Iron Lung, about polio.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of correlation between the DDTs and some of the really toxic pesticides, hence the butterfly, and the incidence and the prevalence or otherwise of polio, which is very interesting.
Yes, when you look at the if you look at it as a scatter graph, it is really interesting how polio cases were on the way out anyway, and they came in with the vaccines, which were, of course, incredibly profitable, as most vaccines are.
Absolutely were. But it all started, you know, polio's been around for quite a long time, but it actually really kicked off when there was you're testing my memory of the book here, but something like 1885 or so, somebody came up with this highly toxic product that farmers were using to protect their crops, and lo and behold, there were pockets of polio erupting, mainly in the rural areas where they were using this stuff. And so it went on, and it goes up and down. And it's very, very complex. And then you know, it was polio was very common with the American troops, even say in the Philippines and the islands, you know, in the Pacific, say, where the local population, who nutrition wasn't great and what have you, they wouldn't get it, but they would be finding polio within the troops, who were fogging their rooms with DDT left, right, and centre. Yeah, so there's some amazing correlations, which it's worth looking at. Yeah, now the whole thing may be wrong, but as a scientist, my job is to look at the evidence on the right and the evidence on the left, and to weigh it up, and to just go, oh no, polio is because of the virus. Well, yeah, maybe that's what I was taught. But let's look at, you know, as new evidence comes about, you have to review your position. That's science. That's why we're not still in caves, because we reviewed new information and new techniques as they came along, and grasped hold of the ones that worked, and thus we went into the Bronze Age, and then, you know, we progressed out of the caves.
It does strike me as odd, looking at TV and film, that the hero doctors, people like House, people like Joanne Gray, they're always the doctors that have a slightly different viewpoint on the business of diagnosis. They're always the people that will go, hang on, everybody else is wrong. This is Kawasaki syndrome, or whatever it was. That was the last Grey's Anatomy one we watched. We had to stop because COVID was coming in, and I was told it was horribly woke. But it does strike me as bizarre that we are asked by film and TV to deify those physicians who will take a different view. But in the big unwashed mass of the, what did you say, did you say 280,000?
That's what Malik says, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Malik says.
280,000 doctors in the UK, yeah.
Of that lot, the grey mass, they don't act like that at all. They don't diagnose. They just say, symptom set, what I've been given in my big nice book by Pharma. Here you go. Crack on, and then we'll
I think there's a lot of good doctors out there. I think there are some really great doctors out there. But what gets me is that nobody piped up and said, "This is nonsense. Social distancing is nonsense. Lockdowns are more harmful the way they're being implemented than they're doing good, considering the risk, the age stratification of risk for COVID." The Great Barrington Declaration said, protect the vulnerable and let everybody else get on with it for all sorts of physiological and economic reasons. But they were laughed out of town. They were Oxford, Harvard, and Stanford epidemiologists, and people thought they were absolutely barking mad. Unfortunately, so I'm slightly worried that science has been turned upside down, that science used to be inquiry and debate, and now it's this is the truth. This is the narrative, and if you depart from that, you never get anything published. You don't get grants, and so it's become a controlled marketplace, if you like.
If you look at the way the Matrix is constructed, it has legal aspects, it has medical aspects, it has educational aspects, it has health aspects, it has food aspects. And then it also has more insipid things, like mind control. You mentioned earlier about things not making sense. Why should you get the COVID when you're standing up but not sitting down? Why would you get the COVID from somebody? Why would you not get it from them when they hand you a receipt? But you are at risk when you're standing in front of them, divided by perspex. Now that just causes confusion. Yeah. And to people like you or I, were just okay. That's fucking garbage. But if you are slightly more sleepy, then the confusion causes more openness to more mind control. Hands, face, space. It was always. The thing is, the common man,
if he's told by the government that we've got to have perspex shields in supermarkets that only go to here, he says, just going 2 foot above his head, and that's going to protect you, they might buy that. Yeah. Because there is a grain of perverse logic in it. But where were the doctors? Where were the infectious disease specialists saying that perspex shield is not going to protect anybody from anything apart from being headbutted?
That's why they're keeping them. I asked at my local co-op.
Is that
I said,
right?
Why have you got these things up? He said, violence. You won't believe the amount of violence. I was like, okay.
That's because he locked everybody down for 2 years. So where were the doctors then? I'm really, really. I'm irritated at my profession that nobody stood up, because we've got, we're talking epidemiology and virology and bacteriology and and physics and all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't our disease; it's a human disease. And there's a lot of doctors out there who didn't stand up, and I think that's unforgivable.
Well, we are going to have to forgive them, though.
We are going to have to forgive them, and if they come round, that would be great. because they will be, once bitten, twice shy. They will be a lot stronger against it next time round. And I'm prepared to forgive them. So I said unforgivable, but it's...
No, I don't mean to pick on you, but I pick on anyone.
No, but yeah. I mean, we had this conversation earlier. It's forgivable. Yes, you've got to forgive people when they come round and bring them in and embrace them within the tribe. But it's unimaginable, perhaps, that so many doctors just lay back and took it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. On a human level, it doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
We spoke about David Cartland earlier.
Yeah.
And one of his videos, when I don't know how he did it, but he got back into practice and he was doing a locum shift. He must have been in Truro. And he was in a break room and just said, look, it's got worse. I've been away for a couple of months while the BMA were trying to prove I was a mental, but it's got worse. People are genuinely dying. There are 25-year-old men coming in who are reporting that they weren't reporting, they were being tested and they had no active sperm. Stuff like that. It was just disgusting. And he was genuinely stunned and surprised that people weren't speaking up. Absolutely crazy. I mean, did you ever have any conversations with your veterinary colleagues during lockdown and COVID and just think, what the fuck are those human doctors up to?
With the ones who are awake, we've spoken about everything.
Cool.
Yeah. But it's all so obvious, the wall of silence within a lot of professions. Where were all the lawyers? I'll tell you the big thing. Where are all the journalists?
I go with musicians myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no one's... Where are all the protest songs?
True. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. That's why I had to do it. I had to pay thousands of pounds to go into a studio to record 2 protest songs and do 2 videos because no one was fucking doing it.
Good for you. And then Neil Young bolshing about Joe Rogan.
My God,
I love Neil Young's early stuff. I love.
Yes.
But I'm really disappointed in him.
Well, I went around when I finally woke up, which I have to say was early 21. I'd play Rocking in the Free World as loud as I could whilst dreaming about the Great Awakening. And then he did what he did. No,
sorry,
I can't
Neil.
be bothered with these people anymore. Where are the rebels? But solicitors is a really, really interesting one. Because I know some good ones and I know some bad ones. And if you read your conspiracy, you'll realise that they have all given their fealty and their loyalty to a different country. They don't work for us. Solicitors do not work for us. But they should at least know right from wrong. They should at least understand that a mandate is a contract that you can enter into. They should at least understand that praying by an abortion clinic should not be termed a crime. But still, they're not here. And I do, as much as I harp on about forgiveness, I do worry about everybody's safety when it does come out what has been going on. I do worry that people will get dragged out.
Do you think it is actually going to come out? I think it might do over the next 100 years.
No, it will do. That's where I get a bit esoteric. Not religious, because I'm not religious, but the way I see things, the reason we're having this conversation is to make space for others to have the conversation, and that must be so. Because for every conversation that goes on like this, that makes space for another 100 conversations.
Tip of the spear. Yeah, somebody's got to be at the leading edge.
And people misunderstand the common knowledge. The common knowledge is where everybody knows in their heart of hearts that almost everybody else is thinking the same way that they are. And there will be a point, it will be an energetic shift at which you will be able to talk about adverse reactions from COVID vaccines at the bus stop, or in the queue for an ATM, or in the queue at Starbucks, or whatever it is. There will be a point, and at that point we win. Because at that point, it's irreversible. There's been an energetic change from which no one can go back.
Okay, I think there's a social element to this as well. I think the more educated you are, the more likely you are to have taken the blue pill. Yeah,
Yes.
the more likely you are to have gone with the COVID narrative. Yeah, because when I got some wonderful people, many of whom are friends, and also just traveling in the UK and in Europe, you speak to your taxi driver and he'll say, "Oh yeah, COVID, what a load of nonsense." Yeah. I go from a veterinary conference where I daren't mention anything because everybody's jabbed. Get in the taxi, and the taxi driver says, "Yeah, what a load of nonsense. I wasn't jabbed. No way, not in a million years." Or Johnny, our plumber, he comes along and we sit down for half an hour over a cup of tea and we talk about all the nonsense. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? This is a really good podcast. You know, this is the conversation we have. Or the guy comes along to try and fix the electricals, and it's within 5 minutes. My wife goes, "Oh my God, he's not talking about COVID already, is he?" And it's usually within 3 minutes. Because
I'm just going to grab a book which explains all of this.
Good. I like books.
Disciplined Minds by Jeff Schmidt. A critical look at salary professionals and the soul-battered system that shapes their lives.
Ooh.
It's an absolute cracker. It's a bit dense, as you can probably understand and realise. But it essentially goes through people of...
Just give me a reference.
Yeah. Disciplined Minds.
Disciplined Minds.
And Jeff Schmidt is the author. And it basically goes through how the professionals are, how they're recruited, how they're trained, how they're brought through a system, how all of these kind of biases are starting to be built in, how funding mechanism works. So groupthink is created and then reaffirmed each time. And you get these laptop classes, these people, what did somebody call them the other day, that have luxury opinions. And because they are insulated, because they're all making 150,000 a year after tax, they just don't see what's going on, and they become part of this self-perpetuating machine. And then if you go up, you get people who start to serve on the same non-executive boards and work with the same charities and work with the same NGOs and know a guy at Chatham House, etc., etc. Yeah. And it's the kind of thing where I was talking about JFK earlier, and there's this wonderful piece in the Oliver Stone movie where they're talking about the plot. And it's reasonably fictionalized, but something bad went on there. But the basis of it is that they all knew what was going on. Nothing had to be said. They all understood what needed to be done. And that's what you get at this level in society. But your plumbers, your builders, the people who actually do stuff and create stuff, they have no need to put up with any of that shit because they're able to tell the truth. But these guys who rely on the government for their money, ultimately, and it absolutely fascinates me how much money comes from the government. How much pharma spent on media advertising, this sort of thing, especially in America.
It's reflected in Orwell's 1984 as well. Remember Winston Smith? He goes around with the drudged bureaucrats within the ministry. Then you've got all the guys at the top who eat caviar and stuff. But then he goes down into with the proles. Can't remember what he calls them. Maybe the proles. What do they call them?
I'm not sure, but he goes to visit a very, very jolly Cockney prostitute, I think, with lots of makeup, who's living carefree.
Is that right? I can't remember that. I can remember he has a drink with an old sailor or something like that, and they totally get it. They totally get what's happening. And it's exactly the same, and it's reflecting what you're saying, that real people get it, and the more you bamboozle yourself, the more you're more easily led by the nose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you think we're not making that up. That is my experience.
No, you're not making it up at all. The kind of
Mm.
conversations I've had with people who remain friends, but it's funny. It's funny to watch. There's a really interesting. What's his name? Oh, there's so many stuff. Dr. Carson, I think he is, who looks at hidden history and the secrets within the pyramids, these sorts of things. And he talks about the Agent Smith effect, where the prisoner becomes the prison guard in a minute. And such is the mind control that you can see this happen. And I've seen the change in people's change in their gait, their attitude, their facial expression when you attack a universal truth. And I found this a lot when Russia invaded Ukraine. And as a lifelong holder of opposing views, I simply said to this chap, well, is Putin as bad as they say? And the change was instant. I mean, genuinely instant. It became quite aggressive. I don't want to fall out with you. So I don't want to fall out with you either. I was just asking a question. I was just introducing something in for comment. But that was that. That was the end of the evening, end of the friendship, best I can see. It was very interesting. But once you find that point, you really get an instant reaction, and suddenly they're guarding the system. They've gone from being a kind of a consumer of the energy within the system to guarding the system, and they've got loads of them. It's incredible. Terrifying business, really. How long have I got you for, Nick?
Let's go another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, is that okay? Yeah.
Oh,
I can't. I just looked at the clock a few minutes ago, and I couldn't believe it. It's 50 minutes down, and
well, I'm
it's
a
very
engaging host, Nick. I really am.
Well, it's something's happened, and it's been very, very easy to talk and very fascinating. So thank you.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. So how do you see this? What are your predictions for the next kind of 6 to 12 months? I mean, I'm absolutely, we're going to win this thing. How do you see things panning out?
I think that 24 is going to be tumultuous.
That's a good word.
Isn't it? For many reasons. You've got this whole business about Ukraine and NATO.
Yep.
That's coming up in June. You've got the American elections in November.
If we make it that far. If they don't lock us down again for bird flu or cow flu. Or
CO2, the whole climate agenda. I think that will be the reason. The 15-minute cities. That's going to be.
I can't see that surviving this year, to be honest with you. I mean, just look outside. I don't see global warming. I know they've rebanded it to climate change, but I honestly can't see. And this is where the plumbers come back in. That everybody's looking out, going, "Hang on, we're going into a global cooling. This doesn't make sense." I can absolutely see that there'll be a histrionic. To me, there's a panic. There will be a histrionic atmosphere to 2024 where everything will get sped up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of highs and lows. You've also got the WHO, the health regulations, the international health regulations.
Absolutely.
They're going to be there, I think, May. So I think there's going to be a lot happening in 24. There are glimmers of hope. Dr. John Campbell gave a presentation 5 days ago, where they were saying about long COVID may be associated with vaccination.
Yes, that was an interesting one.
Yeah. So I think it's going to come out in dribs and drabs, but I don't think we're going to be substantially further forward in December than we are now, but somewhat further forward. I think that would be the case, because the powers that be, who are extremely powerful, they can't let it come out, because otherwise there'll be, a revolution, hopefully a peaceful revolution. And they don't want that. They spent, since the 50s, Club of Rome. Ivor Cummins is the guy to look at. Nordengard, Jakob Nordengard. He's the guy who's done all the history of these people. that's all coming out. The international health regulations. So I think it's going to be tumultuous. I think it's worth having 6 months of food in the house and loo roll, because that was the first. Remember, in COVID, that was the first thing to go. Pasta and loo roll, I think, wasn't it?
I've still got loads of both.
Yeah.
Well, oddly enough, I bought them after COVID. I thought the arse was going to fall out of the world in mid-2021.
Okay. So you stocked up on your loo roll.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I've got wonderful memories of camping holidays in Cornwall, drinking pop and eating canned stew. So when the apocalypse comes, I'm just going to be sat in my garden with a Cala gas cooker, loving life.
Canned stew.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
God willing, the weather will be good for the end of the world. We will see.
Yeah. But yeah, I've went out and got a whole sheet, and I'm going to continue every week get a whole sheet of tins of corned beef. And I don't even like corned beef.
I love corned beef.
Do you?
Yeah, I've got a load of corned beef as well.
Yeah,
and now we don't have the dog.
Wise.
Well, I've got loads of canned sardines as well that I got.
Yeah, good.
Because I didn't think we were going to be able to get dog food. But now we no longer have the dog. We're going to be eating sardines come, well, maybe the supply lines will ease up and I won't have to feed everybody canned sardines. We'll see. But I agree that 2024 is going to be a ripper. And 2025, that's when shafts of light come out of the clouds and we start to see what's going on. But it's been
I think they already are, Ben. We're having this kind of conversation, and there are a lot of people coming together. Tess Laurie is doing all her work. Del Bigtree is a mountain of goodness.
He is a big voice,
and
definitely.
He's doing so. I love him. He's brilliant, and all his crew are very good as well. So there's a lot of goodness, and I'm just hanging on to all that goodness to get me through. I think we need to actively move from fear. Do whatever you can to move from a place of fear.
Yes.
Because when you're fearful, you can't think, and that's how they want it.
Yes.
So I think for your own sake, but for the sake of us all, move away from fear and embrace those people who understand, who've woken. Yeah.
Well, whether you like it or not, whether you pay attention to it or not, the Bible says 365 times, "Do not be afraid." And whether that book is actually the Word of God or Alien Disclosure or part self-help group book, I don't know. But it's historically significant and it's right there. Fear not, fear is the mind killer.
Yeah.
And let that be the lesson. Nick, it's been wonderful talking to you. God
Ben,
bless you.
thank you so much. Yeah, listen, keep up the good work. It's absolutely fantastic. I was going to ask you for some favourite books, favourite podcasts at all, just to finish off. I've given you a few of mine.
I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh, you don't?
I don't, no.
Okay.
I'm not a great person to ask. It's a little like if you start off with the odd joint, and then when you've had a load of vodkas, get on a couple of lines, and then you end up being a heroin addict. I'm much more likely to be listening to something about whether we do indeed live in a simulation, or whether our DNA was fucked with 300,000 years ago, than I am to be listening to James Dellingpod or whatever. But I'll certainly share with you some of the more interesting Telegram groups I'm on, without a doubt.
Okay. I tend not to do Telegram groups because there's, for every one gem, you've got to read through 99
yes,
non-gems.
There is a lot of batshit crazy on Telegram.
Yeah, exactly. So books. Top 3 books on any subject.
On any subject. Let's have a look. The most recent... it's not the most recent, but the second most recent, David Icke, is absolutely fascinating.
I saw him and Dellingpole try and have a debate.
Yeah,
last year.
Dellingpole started to worry me slightly. He's a very.
I think he's getting a bit mad.
He is going a bit mad, yeah, and he's becoming less and less reasonable. Right, I've got a new phone. I'm trying to unlock it and then find readable.
That'll teach you. That'll teach you for being clever.
Yes, indeed. So, David... Oh, no, I can't sign in now. It's called The Dream. David Icke, The Dream.
Okay.
And it goes through this Gnostic idea that there is a prime reality created by a creator God that's wonderful and light and absolutely fucking fantastic. And that in front of that, there's this overlay, which is essentially hell on earth, which we live in. And that's what makes up the Matrix. Let's have a look over here. Oh, I don't know if you're ready for this one, but
go on then.
Conspiracy's Hierarchy by John Coleman. Now that's an absolute killer. Okay,
I've got one for you then. 180 Degrees by, you've probably read it, Fergus O'Connor Greenwood.
Oh yes, no, I know Fergus. He's a mate.
Oh wow. Okay,
I interviewed him just after Christmas.
Wow.
He's a really, really good guy. And I've met a few of his mates as well. He's speaking at the Glastonbury Symposium, which I think is in July.
You see, there you go. There's a ray of hope.
Oh, there's. Well, I have to say I don't like hope because hope is outsourced work. If you hope for something,
yes, okay,
you want
a ray of light, if you like. Yeah, it's a little bit more direct.
I'd much rather, because what you're talking about in terms of not living in fear and instead living in love and expectation. That's something everybody can do. A lot of the problem with humanity, I would humbly put forward, is that people outsource their hope for the future. They outsource their saving, and they look for saviours. They look for saviours in Trump. They look for saviours in those three Muppets who stood up back in summer 2020 as to how we're going to get out of this absolute shit heap. But the reality of it is, as far as I can see, is that to change the world tomorrow morning, all we have to do is everybody go out and be nice to the first person they meet. If everybody decides to do that at once, that's the game over. Because after that, everything just dissolves. All of this is built on division. All of this is built on fear. LGBTQ, that's about division. That's not about freedom.
About division.
Black Lives Matter, that's about victim hierarchy. Who's the worst off? All of it really is just it's a Marxist march towards a horrible world full of horrible little people all fighting each other. Now we can deal with that really, really easily. Just be nice to people.
Be nice. Yeah,
and that's it. As controversial as that might be. There you go. The world according to Ben Hawkes. But stick around in a second, and I'll tell you a few things about 180 you might not know.
Okay. Amazing.
Right. God bless you.
Okay.
Nick, where can people find you? How can they help you pay
my
your
website,
mortgage?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. My website is holisticvet.co.uk, spelt as it sounds, no K. And on the Instagram, I hate Facebook. I use it for raw pet. We do every week on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. UK time. We do a Facebook Live on nutrition, on health, on ideas, called Raw Pet Medics.
Yeah.
And so people are very welcome to come along. It's a freebie. So come along to that. And on Instagram, I am Holistic Vet UK, Holistic Vet UK.
And I heartily recommend your Instagram channel. It's a hotbed of controversy and hereticism.
Yeah, I put out some good regen stuff. I put out some good stuff about we've got to eat meat. We've got to farm those animals just in a wonderful way. And I think that there is no climate crisis. I think that farming will be our saviour, not our downfall. And I think we're going to be all right at the end of the day, but I think it's going to be a rocky road until then. But there you go.
Happy days.
Holisticvet.co.uk and Holisticvet UK. And absolutely wonderful. Ben, keep up the good work.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
really, really, really great to talk to you. It's nice to see you again. And you've got a great energy. And thank you for sharing that with me today.
God bless you. Thank you, Nick. I'm going to press stop record. Please do stick around.